The real reason: he gives you what he doesn't give his wife. Carl Jung. Have you ever noticed how some married men offer other women exactly what they deny their wives? Genuine attention, quality time, deep conversations, emotional presence. While at home, they barely look into the eyes of their partner. Outside there, they become attentive, interested, available listeners. But why? Was it just physical attraction? Marital boredom? The answer is much more disturbing than you might think. There is a hidden psychological mechanism that explains this behavior, and it reveals uncomfortable truths about masculinity, desire, and unconscious projection. What this man offers to the other is not generosity. It is a psychic need to find lost parts of himself. And the wife? She has become the mirror of what he most fears to face. In this video, we'll unravel the psychological behind the scenes of this relationship-destroying dynamic, and you'll understand why the problem was never really about you. 1. The projection of the Anima, when he sees in her what he has lost in himself. Within every man, there is a dormant feminine energy that he has left behind throughout his life. This inner part carries sensitivity, intuition, the ability to connect deeply and emotionally vulnerable. As a child, he learned that displaying these traits was a sign of weakness. Society has taught that real men don't cry, don't open up, don't express fear or insecurity. So he locked that part of himself in a psychic basement and threw away the key. The problem is that this energy does not disappear. It is still alive in the unconscious, asking to be recognized and integrated. And when he meets a woman who embodies these qualities he has rejected in himself, something powerful happens. She becomes a blank canvas on which he projects everything he has lost. Suddenly, this other woman seems to have a magical depth, a special understanding, a lightness that completely fascinates him. But here's the brutal truth: he's not in love with her. He is in love with the very feminine soul that he sees reflected in it. It's like looking in a mirror and finally seeing the part of yourself that has been denied for decades. This woman becomes the bearer of everything he cannot access alone. Authentic emotion, creativity, spontaneity, the ability to be present in the moment. With his wife, this projection no longer works. After years together, everyday reality dissolved the fantasy. She stopped being the perfect canvas for her projections and became a real person with her own flaws, demands, and needs. The magic ended because he was forced to face the truth. No external woman can give back what he needs to find within himself. So he looks for a new canvas. A woman who still doesn't know her flaws, her limitations, her fears. Someone in front of whom he can perform the idealized version of himself. And in this performance, he offers attention, presence, and sensitivity. Not because he's generous, but because he's trying to reconnect with humanity itself through it. He becomes the sensitive man he always wanted to be, but only in the reflection of her eyes. The tragedy is that as long as he does not rescue these lost parts of himself, he will continue to look for external women to fill this inner void. The wife pays the highest price because she represents the bankruptcy of this fantasy. It is living proof that projection solves nothing, and so he avoids it, denies it, diminishes it, because looking at it means facing his own failure to become whole. 2. The wife as a shadow, the mirror he avoids. His wife knows the secrets he hides from himself. She saw the fits of anger, the moments of cowardice, the little lies he tells to protect his own ego. She witnessed the unfulfilled promises, the abandoned dreams, the times he chose the easy path. She knows exactly who he is when no one else is looking. And that terrifies him. Each human being carries within himself a psychological shadow, the set of characteristics that we deny possessing. These are the aspects that we deem unacceptable, shameful, or incompatible with the image we want to project. For many men, this shadow includes weakness, inadequacy, selfishness, emotional immaturity. They build a facade of competence and control, but inside they carry the terror of being exposed as frauds. The wife becomes the most accurate mirror of this shadow. It no longer buys performance. After years of living together, she sees through social masks and meets the real man behind the cultivated image. And the more she knows this truth, the more he feels threatened. Because being close to her means confronting daily what he fears most in himself. Then he begins to project on his wife all the negative characteristics that he does not accept in himself. If he is emotionally unavailable, he accuses her of being too needy. If he avoids conflicts out of cowardice, he says that it is dramatic. If he has settled down in life, he complains that she has no ambition. This psychological inversion allows him to continue running away from his own shadow while blaming him for all the problems in his marriage. With the other woman, he can be whoever he wants. She doesn't know her failures, her inconsistencies, her dark sides. In front of her, he performs the heroic version of himself without fear of being unmasked. You can tell edited stories of your own life, omitting the shameful parts. It can be attentive and present because there is not yet the weight of everyday reality. But the truth is that he is not running away from his wife. He is running away from himself. And the more he runs away, the more his wife becomes a symbol of everything he rejects. She ceases to be a person and becomes the embodiment of his own inner demons. That is why he denies her gentleness, patience, presence, because to offer this would be to admit that the problem was never her. It would be to face the mirror and recognize that the shadow has always been inside it. If this makes sense, remember what Jung said. We give our deepest parts only where the unconscious feels seen. Click the link pinned in the first comment and understand why he gives you what he doesn't give his wife. 3. The fascination with the unknown versus the boredom of the familiar. The human brain is programmed to seek novelty. Neurobiologically, novel experiences release dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure and motivation. When he meets someone new, each discovery activates this reward system. Each conversation reveals something unexpected. Each encounter brings the thrill of unpredictability. The other woman is an unexplored territory, full of mysteries to be unraveled. With his wife, this neural chemistry no longer works in the same way. After years together, his brain categorized her as known, predictable, safe. There are no more surprises. He knows how she will react, what she will say, how she will behave in each situation. And while this predictability is the basis of true intimacy, for those seeking constant stimulation, it feels like unbearable boredom. The problem is not that the wife has become less interesting. The problem is that he stopped having genuine curiosity about her. He stopped asking questions, paying attention to details, taking an interest in her inner life. He assumed that he already knows everything and closed the door to new discoveries. Meanwhile, he treats the other woman as a fascinating enigma, investigating every opinion, every story, every gesture. There is also a fantasy component that familiarity destroys. With someone new, he can fill the knowledge gaps with idealizations. He doesn't know how he wakes up in a bad mood, how irritated he gets in traffic, how he reacts under pressure. So imagine the perfect version. Reality has not yet had time to tarnish the fantasy. He is in love with the story he tells himself, not the real person. The wife lost the right to the costume. She is too real, too human, too well known. He saw her sick, stressed, vulnerable, imperfect. He saw the unglamorous moments of shared life. And although this is the essence of authentic intimacy, for those who live in fantasy, it seems disenchanted. Because fantasy requires distance. Real proximity dissolves illusions. What he doesn't realize is that he's trading depth for superficial excitement. The novelty that attracts him so much is temporary in nature. In a few months or years, the other woman will also become familiar. The same stories will be repeated, the same patterns will emerge, predictability will return. Because the problem is not who he is with, but how he relates. Someone who has not developed the ability to find depth in familiarity will live jumping from novelty to novelty, always dissatisfied, always looking for the next stimulus. 4. The fantasy of salvation. Why it seems to be the answer. Many men live with an existential void that they never learn to name. They feel that life is not what it should be, that something essential is missing, that they are trapped in an existence that they did not really choose. But instead of doing the inner work necessary to understand and resolve this void, they seek external salvation, and nothing seems more saving than idealized romantic love. The other woman appears as a promise of rebirth. With it, everything will be different. He will finally be understood, valued, inspired. Life will gain color and meaning again. It represents not just a new relationship, but a new identity, a second chance, a total fresh start. It's as if her mere presence has the magical power to transform who he is. This fantasy is seductive because it transfers responsibility. If she's the answer to all of his problems, then he doesn't have to do anything but conquer her. You don't need to work on yourself, develop emotional maturity, face unresolved traumas. Just change women and magically everything will be solved. It is the promise of the shortcut, the easy solution, the effortless transformation. With his wife, this fantasy has already been tested and failed. Early in the relationship, he also projected onto her expectations of salvation. She believed that getting married would solve her loneliness, that having a partner would bring purpose, that love would be enough. But the reality of marriage has shown that no external person can fill internal voids. The wife is living proof that the fantasy of salvation is illusion. That's why he needs someone new to reactivate the fantasy, someone who has not yet been contaminated by reality. With it, you can believe again that this time it will be different, that this is the right person, that the problem was in the previous choice. It is easier to blame the wife for not being the promised savior than to admit that no one could ever fulfill this impossible role. What he offers the other woman is not mature love. It is the desperate devotion of those who seek redemption. He becomes thoughtful, present, generous, not because she is special, but because he needs to believe that she has the power to save him. Each gesture is an investment in a fantasy. Each moment together is an attempt to keep alive the illusion that it has found the answer. But salvation does not come from outside. It comes from the hard work of becoming whole, of integrating fragmented parts, of taking responsibility for one's own life. As long as he seeks this answer in external women, he will remain trapped in a cycle of idealization and deception. The next one will also fail to save you. And the next one. Because the question was never about finding the right person, but about becoming the right person. 5. The fear of real intimacy that the wife represents. True intimacy requires total vulnerability. It means allowing one to see not only the successes, but the failures, not just strength, but weakness, not just the public version, but the private chaos. It's letting the defenses fall completely and trusting that you'll still be accepted. For many men, this poses an existential threat, because they have been taught that vulnerability is danger, that showing need is weakness, that a true man is enough. The wife is the one who most demands this authentic intimacy. After years together, there is nowhere to hide. She knows the patterns of behavior, the psychological defenses, the hidden wounds. She asks him to show up emotionally, to talk about feelings, to share fears and insecurities. And each such request sounds like a threat to those who have built an identity based on self-sufficiency. Then he closes himself. It is distant, inaccessible, entrenched behind emotional walls, responds with monosyllables, avoids deep conversations, is distracted by work or hobbies, because being truly present means facing one's own inner emptiness. It means admitting that you are not as strong as you pretend to be, that you need help, that you are afraid. And that seems intolerable. With the other woman, he can control the distance. The relationship is still in the superficial stage where real vulnerability is not required. He shares just enough to feel deep, but nothing that really exposes his wounds. You can keep the mask in place while enjoying the feeling of connection without the risk of true intimacy. It is false, performative, safe intimacy. What he calls attention and presence offered to the other is actually a performance of intimacy. He acts like someone emotionally available without actually becoming vulnerable. He tells edited stories of his life, expresses calculated opinions, shows only the sides he approves. Meanwhile, it keeps the shameful, frightened, broken parts hidden. This is easy because she doesn't know enough to challenge the narrative. His wife, on the other hand, has seen too much. She knows where the weak points are. She knows the poorly healed wounds. She recognizes when he is running away. And because she knows so much, she unconsciously pressures him to face these truths. His every attempt to get emotionally closer is perceived by him as an invasion, as an unbearable demand, as a threat to the defensive structure that keeps the ego intact. He doesn't realize that he's exchanging real depth for surface connection. You are choosing the illusion of intimacy over the transformative vulnerability that mature relationships require. And in this choice, he denies his wife, not because she doesn't deserve it, but because she represents everything he fears most, being known completely and still needing to take responsibility for who he really is. 6. The need for male validation outside the home. Many men carry a deep wound of inadequacy. They grew up feeling that they were never enough, not strong enough, intelligent, successful, courageous. Masculinity was presented as an impossible goal that they constantly had to prove they had achieved. And in this relentless search for validation, they developed a dependence on external recognition. They need others to confirm their worth because they cannot find that certainty within themselves. At home with his wife, this validation no longer comes easily. She sees him for who he really is, neither hero nor villain, just human. She is not impressed by the same achievements he has been repeating for years. He does not applaud every small gesture as if it were extraordinary. He knows his limitations and doesn't pretend that he is perfect. To someone thirsty for constant validation, this feels like rejection. The other woman offers what he craves most, unconditional admiration. She is impressed by stories that his wife has heard 1,000 times. He finds the career that at home is treated as routine fascinating. He sees in him qualities that he himself would like to possess. She becomes the perfect audience for the performance of masculinity that he so badly needs to stage. With her, he can be the man he always wanted to be seen as. He can exaggerate successes, minimize failures, build a heroic narrative of his own life. Each encounter is an opportunity to receive the dose of validation that feeds the hungry ego. He's not interested in getting to know her deeply. He's interested in how she makes him feel about himself. That's why it offers attention and presence. Not because he genuinely cares about her, but because this attention generates return in the form of admiration. It is an emotional transaction disguised as generosity. He invests time and energy because the payment comes in validation. As long as she continues to see in him the hero he performs, he will continue to offer everything he denies to his wife. The wife stopped validating because she matured. He realized that healthy adults don't need constant applause for fulfilling basic responsibilities. She is not impressed by empty performativity. It seeks real partnership, not worship. But for a man who has never developed genuine self-esteem, this maturity of hers seems like coldness, ingratitude, disinterest. The problem is that external validation never fills the internal void permanently. It is like a drug that needs larger and larger doses to have an effect. The admiration of the other woman will eventually not be enough either. He will need a new audience, a new stage, new applause. Because as long as you do not develop an internal sense of value, you will remain a slave to the opinion of others. The real tragedy is that the wife could be a partner in this journey of building genuine self-esteem, but that would require him to stop performing and start being real. It would require vulnerability, honesty, a willingness to grow. And that seems scarier than continuing to seek superficial validation in temporary places. 7. The role of denial, running away from emotional responsibilities. Taking emotional responsibility means recognizing that we are the architects of our own life, that our choices created the current circumstances. That unhappy marriage is not just the wife's fault, but the result of shared decisions and often emotional neglect itself. For many men, this truth is unbearable. Then they activate powerful denial mechanisms that allow them to avoid confrontation with their own responsibility. Denial works by creating alternative narratives where he is always a victim of circumstances. The wife changed. The marriage went cold. Life became monotonous. It all happened to him, not because of him. In this edited version of reality, he is a passive character in a story of disappointment, never the author of the choices that led to the current discontent. It's like watching a movie of one's own life, with the inconvenient scenes cut. Seeking the other woman is the supreme act of denial. It allows him to avoid looking honestly at the real problems. Instead of asking why the marriage has stalled, why communication has failed, why the connection has disappeared, and what role it all plays, he simply looks for a way out. The other woman is a convenient escape door that dispenses with painful self-reflection. With it, he can keep intact the image of himself as a good guy who simply hasn't found the right partner. You don't need to examine your destructive patterns, your inability to be intimate, your emotional selfishness. You can continue to believe that you are a caring and present man who was only with the wrong woman. The other confirms this narrative because she does not yet know the truth. What he offers her is not just attention denied to his wife. It is proof to himself that he is capable of being a good partner. It is evidence that the problem was never him. Every kind gesture, every moment of presence, every deep conversation serves to validate the narrative of denial. See, he manages to be considerate. So it's definitely the wife's fault for not inspiring these qualities in him. But emotional responsibility does not disappear by being denied. It is only postponed. Eventually, the same patterns will emerge in the new relationship. The same escapes, the same fears, the same limitations, because changing partners doesn't change who you are. And who you are has been shaped by unresolved trauma, untreated wounds, unexamined patterns. The wife represents the mirror of this avoided responsibility. She knows all the broken promises, all the times he chose the easy path, all the missed opportunities for growth. Being close to it means confronting the full record of its failures. So he runs away. He is looking for someone who does not have this record, someone before whom he can start with a clean record. What he doesn't understand is that the record is never clean. We carry the same unresolved issues into every new relationship. And until there is courage to stop denying, to look honestly at oneself, to take full responsibility for one's emotional life, he will keep repeating the same patterns, blaming new people for the same old problems.